focus on pain. Blows my mind alone in my brain. I smell smoke from all of those flames. Fell in holes and hope for my grave. They told me smell the roses, but I burned the whole bouquet.
Tom, you'll never win the fight against your haters long as I listen. Cause I read every single comment that you try missing. Then recite them in your mind and memorize disses. I'm a giant, Thomas, why are you trying to fight with me?
I'm different, don't care about a height difference, I might win it. Show up to a gunfight, knife swinging.
I am the darkness.
Yeah, I got night vision. I need to do this by myself. I told you twice already exactly how I felt. I'm the best rapper ever, I don't wanna be great. If they're the best, then I'm better, don't you make no mistake. Cause I'm the gold, feel it in my bones until I'm a ghost. I'm the one who pulls the sword out of the stone. I'm the best rapper ever, I don't care what you say. I'm Da Vinci, I'm forever, I'm designed for the fame. Cause I'm the gold, get the kid a throne. Everybody knows, only voices that I'm hearing are my own. Best ever.
Aaron Tuttle here. It's storm season in Oklahoma, and with that comes torrential rain, high winds, and hail. To protect your home and your family from these threats, the one roofing company you should trust is Ferguson Roof Systems. They've been providing the best in roofing services for nearly half a century. Ferguson is Oklahoma's full-service roofing company, certified with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and a 5-star rating on Google. And with Ferguson now offering Class 4 impact-resistant shingles, now is the time to trust them with your home's roof. Get started today at FergusonRoofSystems.com. Hey there, Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle with you again. It is about 9:40 here on a Tuesday night. We've got some storms to talk about, both currently out there right now and also expected later on. A little bit of bump in the night is expected here as thunderstorms do develop out in across western and southwestern Oklahoma, and those will be making their way to the north and east with time. So we do expect to have some of you experiencing some hail tonight. Some of it may be rather large. There still is a threat for at least a couple of tornadoes out there as well, assuming things come into line as what some of the model data has been suggesting since about 24 hours ago. Okay, so there's a lot to cover. I'm gonna try to, get through it as fast as possible. I like to show you a lot of stuff. I like to show you what goes on behind the scenes as to why things should happen or should not happen, all that kind of stuff, so that you feel more educated and you feel a lot less anxiety but you still prepare. It's like a trade-off. I want you to be less anxious but more aware, so that you can prepare. You use the frontal part of your prefrontal cortex rather than the panic, free-for-all emotional side when it comes to tornadoes and severe weather here in Oklahoma. So again, thanks for liking it, sharing, commenting. Tell your friends and family about AT's weather. Appreciate the Facebook stars. I see you guys throwing me some love tonight. We may be on late tonight. I may be broadcasting, till who knows. We'll see what happens with these storms out southwest. Okay, with all that said, let's get on with it, shall we? First thing we're going to do is talk about, out there right now it's cloudy, and that's going to lead to some storms. And here's a look at the radar currently. Nothing here in Oklahoma City at this point in time. We're looking at southwest Oklahoma, around Greer County, in Reed and Brinkman. There is a pretty strong thunderstorm here that's got a hail size about golf balls in diameter. This storm's been kind of holding its own. Right now it's just a hail producer. There's no significant rotation or anything with it right now. It's just going to be a hailer for a while. Even though it's rooted in the boundary layer, it's still a little elevated, which means there's not enough deep moisture yet to get a tornado threat out of that one. Now, northwest Oklahoma, you guys are also seeing some storms moving into your area. This is Arnett. These are also hailers, and they're going to be making their way up toward Woodward area, so it's going to be a bumpy evening and early overnight for you guys in northwest Oklahoma. You'll be getting some large hail of these as well, already about golf ball size or greater, and some of these storms in northeastern Texas pain hail. So that is just the beginning. You can see dry elsewhere out there over the body of the state. All right, so that's a quick look at how things are currently with the radar system. Now, if you look at the dew point values, I'm a little disappointed. The numbers haven't come up just yet. They're still in the mid-50s, even out here in southwest Oklahoma. Mid-50s isn't going to cut it. We got to have right around 60 degrees in this environment, maybe even 62, more preferable. But anyway, to get a better tornado threat going. So that's why out here in the west, it's mainly a hail threat right now. But if we look across the border, right along the Red River, there are some low 60s now beginning to come in from Texas, and these will affect overnight into central Oklahoma as any storm that continues to maintain itself moves into that favorable environment. If you look down south into Texas, this is also a surface observation. The green numbers are the dew point values, and they're really low to mid 60s all down in here. So we do have the moisture. It's just having a hard time getting across Red River. I still think it'll make it. It's just going to be a late last minute rush. Now here's a look at the the water vapor channel of the satellite loop. And our little storm system is right out here. This is the position of the upper level low, and out ahead of it, it's kicking off waves of instability, energy. And these has already fired off this first round here and the second round here, and it's about to fire off around right here. This is a round we have to watch for. This is the one that's going to be coming in Oklahoma City late tonight after probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. It's going to start to go gangbusters here once it heads into southwest Oklahoma over the next couple of hours. So we'll have to see by 11 o'clock to midnight what happens with this developing line. A lot of lift, a lot of in the atmosphere with this storm. How you can tell is you see all these bright, bubbly white clouds out ahead of it. That's the leading edge of just ridiculous amounts of lift, vertical lift in the atmosphere. So that's what's going to get those storms to go and continue overnight tonight. Okay, so the Storm Prediction Center has continued with a slight risk in yellow all across Oklahoma and surrounding states, an enhanced risk across northwest Oklahoma for the same thing we've been talking about, large hail damaging winds, and yes, a couple of tornadoes. Even though the tornado potential is low, it's still there. It only takes a couple to cause, obviously havoc and somebody's day to be ruined. Maximum hail size up to baseball. So some big hail and some of the bigger storms. Wind speeds up around 60 plus miles per hour. Tornado, the threat, the Weather Service has drawn up quite a large area. Thinking is up here along the warm front in case a storm gets anchored. With some pooling of moisture up along that from dew points. Otherwise, we're going to kind of the next favorite area would kind of be down in this area here, and then any storms that track in this fashion. So any supercell storms that track through will have the potential to carry with them a tornado later on tonight. All right, so that's kind of a big picture with that. Timing-wise, we talked about it's going to be well after midnight here for Oklahoma City, but of course it's already ongoing out here in northwest and western Oklahoma. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to this guy here. So this is the significant tornado parameter. It's a basket of indices that indicates where the best opportunity to see a tornado is. And this is going to be at the 2 a.m. hour. And you can see this enhancement in the yellow and red. We're in the green, which is very low. Much higher, though, just to our south and west here in southwest Oklahoma. And as you head into the 2 to 3 o'clock hours, see how it kind of shifts east in the I-35 corridor by 4 o'clock in the morning. So from 2 to 4 is our sweet spot here, where the best parameters coincide with the movement of those storms. The storms will be riding along that theta E axis, riding along that instability, and it's kind of with those dew points coming at the same time. It's like a perfect window to align to get stuff that just does not want to behave itself. Okay, so let's go now to the model output. Okay, so you know what I'll do? I'm going to do this real quick. It'll take 2 seconds. Just for you guys that did not watch last night, and you're like, "Hey, what is all this tornado talk?" And you're going to be talking about it, but why? Here's the upper level low pressure system. This is the center of it. Now, if it were be coming in the afternoon, this would be a whole different ballgame, folks. But the fact that it's coming in at night helps to lessen the threat somewhat, but it's still going to be there. This is center of the upper low, so it's pretty far removed. If it was about in this position earlier, then we've already had a big event here, but luckily it's a little bit back westward from there. But the vertical velocities with it, in other words, the big lift I talked about, it's the bright colors you're going to see, these bright blues on the map. This is right here is what's launching that satellite view. We saw those enhancement in the clouds. So that's what's getting those storms to start to fire up, and that will move off to the east. The model diminishes some of the intensity a little bit, but the lift continues to move through central Oklahoma through about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So there's the up-level storm system, and there's the lift associated with that. We got a good speed max here, about 500 millibars. It starts to kind of nudge in here. That's a rush of wind that really helps to kind of crank up the storm development. So it fires up from midnight into 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. across west and central Oklahoma. So that's kind of this added extra insult to injury, if you will, as far as getting storms to go. Okay, so now let's take a look at the output on how things ought to evolve. Now this is tricky. Last night and even at lunchtime today, there was no model I liked as far as the look of how these storms would evolve. But so we're going to use a blend again, and I'm going to tell you where I think they they fail and where they do pretty good. So the models did all right, indicating this one storm or two down here in southwest Oklahoma. So that wasn't too bad. It's got one that still continues. What it does is it continues its intensity. You see this little helicity track here? This indicative of a hail core. A long time hail core with this, so the roofers will be happy with this, of course. But this is making its way to the north and east. Some other supercell type storms moving to northwest Oklahoma. Also some hail up here for Woodward. So these are not necessarily tornado situations yet. So that's 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. It's a fast moving storm, so it's moving on through into central Oklahoma. At midnight, here's that new line of storms developing out here along the state border. According to heavy rain up here in northwest Oklahoma. This is kind of a broken squall-like type situation. That one supercell still going on. This is to be determined as to whether how much of a solid line it is. I think it'll be more broken up. And even at 2 o'clock in the morning, the models do hint at that. And they also keep these helicity tracks just kind of randomly, sporadically, in just various different storm cells, which means, again, there's going to be some hail with this. And at this point in time, likely probably going to be a tornadic type situation with that. You can see that kind of moves into west central Oklahoma. This is 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, this is where the model kind of starts to fade away. It breaks it up here over central Oklahoma. I really don't foresee a reason why it's doing that. In other words, it comes to Oklahoma City almost dry. I don't buy that metro outlook. And then it fires back up east of town, then in eastern Oklahoma starts to get cranking again at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. All right, that moves in Arkansas. So that is how that plays out. Now I want to show you, believe it or not, the severe weather threat doesn't end tonight. And you're like, okay, what's that about? Well, so let's take a look at the high resolution HRRR, and this is why I didn't like it at all. I mean, it has no storms in the Panhandle for 11 o'clock to midnight. It just doesn't do anything. It's got one little storm out there in southwest Oklahoma. It evaporates. It keeps the storms going in northwest Oklahoma. That's fine. It's an easy call for the model. They just can't do very well with this stuff in southwest. So regardless of what happens, I still think there'll be scattered supercells that develop, and they'll move east, and the potential for a tornado with them. So watch it overnight for you. Meanwhile, this is 11 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Now you see these are pretty dark, deep reds, right? This isn't the radar reflectivity. This is what the model forecasts that the radar would look like in the future. And you're going, well, is that just regular rain? Well, hey, what are you doing? That's not what you're supposed to do. Let's try this one. There we go. All right, so this is the forecast sounding for that period of time. And what you have is you have a pretty unstable environment right here. And so with this unstable environment, you can get elevated hail. Now, it won't be very large hail, but would be surprised to see some hail coming down over central Oklahoma with these little stronger cores as they move through in the early part of tomorrow afternoon. Right over Oklahoma City and central Oklahoma itself, moving up toward Tulsa. So again, tomorrow afternoon, do not be surprised to see a little bit of hail with that. Maybe even some lowerings, like an elevated wall cloud, something of that nature. It won't be a tornadic situation, but it will be a hail situation. You get some heavy rain, blowing wind. As a matter of fact, we looked at lunchtime today. Those wind gusts tomorrow will be quite ridiculous. So I'm going to jump into that for you. So here's the winds in the model estimating up around 50 to 60 miles per hour. Now, some of this will not translate to the surface, but some of it will. You have some gusts up there at least over 40. And when you factor in temperatures that are going to be in the cold side, on your Wednesday, it is going to be really not very nice. So there's around lunchtime. It's not bad. But then once we head into 3, 4, 5 o'clock, look at that. A wind chill value of 33 degrees when you head home from work. And wind chill values into the 20s tomorrow evening. So a very rude awakening as cold air filters in. And of course, you need to protect those plants by Thursday morning. Wind chill values in the mid-20s. Actual air temperatures by that point in time should be into the mid-30s. And there'll probably be a lot patchy areas of a light freeze and just random areas of valleys in northwest and western Oklahoma. So just be careful with your plants and that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's a look at that situation. Now, in Oklahoma City overnight, so as these storms approach after midnight, again, like that, there's a sweet spot there from roughly about 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning. Forecast sounding, squeeze in that moisture. They've got the instability. They've got the wind shear involved. And it looks okay. So the potential hazard type is going to be for tornado. So that's why we have to watch this thing overnight. And if it does happen, it may be somewhat strong. In other words, an EF2 type tornado or larger is potentially there. Not a guarantee. It's just this is just a guidance. Does not necessarily predict the future in that aspect. Okay, so that's the concern and that's the why. All right, temperature-wise, we talked about it's going to get cold over the next few nights. We're looking at the mid-30s for Thursday morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning. Daytime highs getting out of the 50s and back into the 60s over the weekend. So some really nice weather coming up in the weekend and next week. We just got to get past, of course, tonight and tomorrow. And then things start to improve overnight as well as we head from the weekend into next week with 40s coming back. So still pretty chilly, but no freezes through March 27th after we get past the first couple of days here, or the last couple of days of this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Okay, now, I doubt this model has come in. Let me see here. Nope, it has not. Let's see here. I'm going to, what else did I want to show you? I know there was always something. Let's see, let's do rainfall totals. Let's do that. So, obviously, it's a situation you can get some flash flooding up around that warm front zone in northwest Oklahoma. So the models do put pockets of 2.5 or so inches of rain that continues on up into central and eastern Kansas. So there is a potential for some flash flooding overnight and tomorrow in this area that you see in the purple and red, and that's again the northwestern third of the state, and then up to the north. Now, anytime you get a supercell storm that may track through, southwest or south central Oklahoma, there will be some heavy rain with that, but since it's a one smaller event, not a training event, one after another, you may get some brief heavy downpours, but it won't lead to a flooding situation like they will up north, just because they got a boundary in place to work with, and those will what they call train, which means go over the same area. They just line up. So, in other words, you'd have a storm that fires here and it moves northeast. You get another storm that fires here and moves northeast, and so on and so forth. And they just keep going over the same area, and that's how you get the flash flooding situation up there. And again, some hail with that too. All right, let's see what else. Let's take a look at, for you folks that are still hanging around, let's go back into the data on the, let's do the dew point values. So let's do that, and I may switch. We'll see. The HER was late to the game on producing upper dew points, which is fine. It's gonna pan out here, I think, at some point. Here's 2 a.m. Dew point values in the low 60s now, moving into central Oklahoma. So what we really have is, let's see, where's my surface low? It's kind of a convoluted surface pattern. We have a surface low here, and then we've got this kind of a broad, elongated surface pattern here, a little trough. So what that means is you end up with something like this. You get the cold front that comes down here, all right? And on the warm front side, it basically runs like this. So what's happening is overnight, with the rain helping it, it's going to push that cold front southward a little bit, little by little overnight. So this is toward 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, Oklahoma City is right here, so we're still not in that colder air. We're in the warm, juicy air. The other thing you have to watch for is a lot of times if you can get near these little developing surface lows or triple points, which, by the way, the triple point is going to be focusing kind of down in this area. But you can get a wind that feeds into these lows in more of an easterly direction. And when that happens, it's a microclimate effect. And if you can get a supercell storm somewhere within that zone, and you get more of an easterly fetch, it really helps to spin up the tornado potential. So you have to watch these little baby surface lows that reside along these boundaries, and obviously up around this triple point region down here in southwest Oklahoma. So all that kind of helps keep what we call the winds backed, meaning more to the southeasterly direction versus just a south direction. All right, so let's see what else I got for you. I think that's about it. I mean, I could go on and on and on, and you guys ain't got time for that, right? So it's almost 10 o'clock. You guys can go watch whoever you'd like to on TV, so you get your news fix. But I want to thank you for watching. I will answer some questions for those of you folks that are staying. A few questions, but the consensus is, bottom line, when you go to bed at night, make sure you've got your, call it a bug out gear if you want. In other words, you've got your stuff ready for if a tornado were to come knocking on your door. You've got everything you need for that particular event. In other words, the day after. What can you not live without? If it's medication or whatever you're going to need in that immediate 24-hour window. Beyond that, you're going to have responders get to you very quickly with water and food and shelter and clothing. So you won't be without that for very long. We're probably only talking about a couple of hours at most. And if you're in a shelter, you should have it registered. Your neighbors should come looking for you also if you're not registered with the county or the city. But I would suggest you doing that. Obviously, your shelter needs to be cleaned out, spray for bugs, all that kind of stuff. If you don't have a shelter, in the center part of your home, lowest floor, will do. Away from outside walls and windows, so whatever you got toward the middle of the house is fine. If it's a closet, a bathroom, under staircase, whatever it may be. If you want to do the old school idea of throwing a mattress on top of you in the bathtub, that's a good thing to do. Helmets and sporting gear for the kids, to protect them, the pads and all that kind of stuff. The idea is to protect you from flying debris. That's the biggest threat. And a tornado is just little tiny shards of whatever just flying at you at 100 plus miles per hour. That's what gets you. So you gotta be careful of the flying debris, and so all those kind of things will help guard you from that. Which is also why we say stay away from the outside walls. Okay, so let's see, it takes care of that. Warnings, make sure you have a NOAA weather radio. If you don't have one, you need one for the spring. In this video in the description, I give you a link to the Amazon store. You can pick one up, a NOAA weather radio. Also, you can download my free weather app. It's called AT's Weather to Go. It's Apple and Google Play. It actually predicts tornadoes before they develop. So what does that mean, Aaron? Well, what happens is it takes a look at everything that's going on currently, all right? Supercell is developing, it's moving northeast, it's going to take a look at it, it's going to look at the environment, and it's going to predict that a tornado is going to develop, and it's going to give a confidence factor of 1 to 10. So if you have a number that you get a twisting storm alert and the number is like a 7, 8, 9, or 10, hit the deck, all right? The storm's at a point to where a tornado should develop. It's very close if not, when it's like at a 7. But once it gets to 8, 9, and 10, it's pretty much definite. Now, if it's on the low end, a 1 or 2, just means it's rotating, and the algorithms are watching it. If it starts to creep up, 3 or 4, or it's already at a 3, 4, 5, or 6, just pay attention to it. Be ready to act. Maybe want to get things together. Now, phones, they're frustrating because Apple controls them, Google controls them. I don't. So as the provider of the app, there are only certain things they allow us to do. And they've changed things. So if you have, in the past, you could have an app on your phone where it would always allow, when it comes to using the phone, like in the background, for your permissions. And I get it. They do it for, safety, security, for other apps that don't need to know where you are, right, where your phone is. This particular app, though, does. It's weather related. It's going to send you a specific alert warning for your actual physical location. It's only going to know that if it knows where your GPS is for your current location. So to do that, make sure those location services are enabled, and it says allow to use the app in the background at all times. You might have to go into your phone settings to double check that it's allowed. So hit the little settings icon on your phone, and then go to find the app, and then make sure it's set to allow always. It's a little trick you have to do because Google just made it very difficult for me. Apple, same way. Let's see. Another thing they've changed, on Android you can override the do not disturb feature for my app and any app you have on your phone. Apple, you can no longer do that. So it's either do not disturb on or do not disturb off. So I'm telling you all this for any of your weather apps or anything else you want to get notified for in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. Those are the limitations now in today's new versions of software on both of those phones. Let's see, what else? Like I said, NOAA weather radio is always good. Always have multiple ways to get backup. You never know if something's going to die. Battery-wise, you're going to lose cell phone tower service or Wi-Fi or whatever. So you always want to have multiple ways to do it. So obviously phones and tablets are good. TVs are good. The guys on TV, they go nuts. So you're going to get information. It may be a little on the hectic, crazy side, but you'll get it there. I'll be broadcasting live when there is tornadoes. Mine will be a lot more relaxed and subdued. But I'll be doing that on my YouTube channel, Facebook Live, and Twitter Periscope. So I do those live on 3 platforms, so you can watch me there. And we'll cover radar, and I've got storm chasers too. If they decide to go out and they're doing some chasing, we'll pull in their live feed if they've got it going. So we'll do all that too, just to see how things are looking. Most of the time, though, chasers don't go at night. It's very dangerous. You can't see, obviously. So there's not as much chaser activity at night as there is during the daytime. So just for that reason alone, I've chased myself at night for the TV stations back when I worked for Channel 5. Really dumb. There's a couple times where, we're just like, is that thing like right here in the field next to us? One of those deals. It wasn't pretty. And that was in the early days before you had, different apps on your phone where you could really know exactly where it was. So, good times. But not the best idea. But hey, people still do it. So, more power to them. Okay. What should go in a bug out bag? Justina wants to know. Our first big storm since we moved here. Well, first off, Rogers wants some hail. Roofers, I know you do. Also, I didn't show you this, but let me do this too, and I'll answer the question about the bug out bag. Norman. Okay, just real quick. I glanced over this, and I forgot to talk about the snow, but it doesn't matter, right? I say that in jest. There's a blizzard warning in the Panhandle. I got to talk about that in a minute. I'm focused on tornadoes, so it slipped my mind. But anyway, we do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for northern and southwestern and western Oklahoma. So keep that in mind. It just means conditions are there for severe weather to develop. When a warning comes out, not a watch, but a warning, that means the storm has been sighted or indicated on radar. And so that warning is, whatever it stands for, is imminent. So severe thunderstorm warning means severe weather is approaching. Hail, wind, sometimes a tornado. If it's a tornado warning, it's a tornado coming. Now, sometimes in those tornado warnings, it'll be radar indicated. It may not have spotter confirmation. It may not have any eye confirmation. The radar may be too far away to really know if it's to get a good low-level scan. So sometimes the tornado warnings may not have a tornado with them, but don't ever plan for that to happen. I'm just saying that can give you some anxiety relieving information. In other words, just because a tornado warning does not 100% that there is going to be one that hits you, okay? That's good news to know, but you want to prepare as though it would, and then just, do one of these things. So the snow, and then the answer about the a bug out bag type idea for you guys that are new here. We'll talk about that. So let me go back to this. I knew there was something I was forgetting earlier. Let's just look at the snowfall. Now let's look at the I haven't looked at before, so it'll be first news to me. So it's got amounts up to around 5-6 inches, and some of the higher amounts from about Woodward, Oklahoma, around 2 to 3, 4 to 5 north of Woodward, and then back out here toward Dalhart and Amarillo. So that's a big chunk of snow for this time of the year. Now, of course, it'll melt fast once the system's over, but it's going to be dumping like crazy while it's happening. It starts, let's see, what was the timing on this? 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning out there, and then continues up to about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it's pretty much over with. But remember, those winds are gusting up to around 40, maybe 50 plus miles per hour, hence the blizzard criteria. So that's why they have a blizzard warning out there in the Panhandle for the higher terrain. Okay, now back to the what do you put in your kit? All right, so yeah, Carolyn, that was some snow. Hard to believe it's Oklahoma, but you can get some snow and a hail in the same day. Snow in northwest Oklahoma, hail in Oklahoma City for Wednesday afternoon. Should be small hail though, but there should still be some hail. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier. Real quickly recap of this. Kind of a bug out bag type situation is anything that you need that you can't do without. That you need, that you don't want to lose. Passports, driver's license, some cash if you want that. Medication, maybe almost like a little toiletry thing, like you're going to, say, at a hotel. It's got your basic necessities. Throw that in there. Maybe a little water, some snacks, little bars or something of any kind, nuts. Shoes. The most overlooked thing, because look, we're all sleeping either naked or almost naked, of course, and you don't have shoes. So when you're running for the hills at the last second, you don't think to let me go pull it, go into the closet and dig out my favorite pair. You don't get time for that. So you're hitting the deck, right? But shoes is one of those things that you need to have by your bed so you can just jump right into and go. The reason why, believe it or not, most injuries that occur after a tornado passes is from the lack of shoes. And you're like, well, how? Because you're walking around on debris which has nails sticking up, and some of those are old rusty nails. So believe it or not, that's one of the biggest injuries is nails in the foot after a tornado passes through, just because everything's just all over the place. So keep that in mind. But other than that, keep in mind that people will find you within the hour or two of it going through. Sometimes a lot sooner than that. Just depends on how populated the area is. If you're more out in the country, you got neighbors. They'll come and check on you. Hopefully, if you've got some neighbors. Let's see. Otherwise, register your shelter if you've got one with the county or the city, and let your neighbors know that you're in town or whatever. So those are kind of last minute things you can do. Now, as far as going somewhere, trying to find a shelter at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, just don't do it. All right. First off, we don't have dedicated public shelters here. So, there are some places obviously that may have the shelters, and I'm not even going to bother going into that. So, if you're shopping or something, they may have a place they take you briefly, if anything's open at 2 or 3 in the morning. But otherwise, if you don't have a shelter at your house based off, either underground or one of those above ground shelters, they're all fine. Any tornado shelter built by FEMA guidelines is fine. So if you don't have any of those, again, you've got the lowest part of your home or building, if it's an office, whatever that you're in, it's the lowest floor away from all outside walls, and put as many things around you as you can, which means 4 walls. If it's a bathroom, a closet, underneath the staircase, those are all great ideas. Just get low and hang on. And the event is over so quick. And most of the time you'll be fine. Even those stronger tornadoes, the EF 2s and 3s, the houses still stand, all right? It's the ones where you get to about an EF 4 to EF 5 is when you have to worry about. Sometimes the houses just get swept off the foundation. Not always, but sometimes. But those are very rare. Those are extremely rare tornadoes. We hardly ever get those. So that's why we say with adequate shelter, you're going to be fine through the majority of tornadoes. So that's another tip for you here. Let's see. So Amanda's got it. She's like birth certificates, marriage license, homeowner's insurance, and a Ziploc bag. So you got a lot of good. Glad you guys are throwing in some more tips than what I can think of here on the fly. I should make a graphic and just list a bunch of stuff in there for you. So I may end up doing that for future broadcasts because, hey, it is just the middle of May. We unofficially start our severe weather season around March 15th is what our normal calendar period is for us weather geeks here in Oklahoma. And then we continue that through about the 15th of June. So that is our severe weather season. Now, sometimes you can get tornadoes outside of those, certainly. We've got a tornado every month in Oklahoma at some point in history. But the majority of them happen in that 3-month window over our state and even really surrounding states. You sometimes get a mini severe weather season in the fall. And sometimes there's freak events like in December, January, February, but that's the kind of the sweet spot, and we peak in May. So that's when the bulk of the best ingredients are here and the strongest storms that come in right before we transition into summer. Because once we transition into summer, the jet stream moves away. It shifts northward into the northern parts of the country, and that means the South Dakota gets the tornadoes, Wyoming, and then even southern Canada. We even see a few up there. But then we just get underneath heat down here, and we start to dry out. So that's kind of how our pattern shapes up if you're new here and if you just kind of moved into the region. You will also, so I'm going to touch on this too. If you watch the TV, guys, you're going to be scared crapless. All right, I'm just telling you. You have to understand, TV is a production. It's a show, right? You got to have energy, you have excitement. You got to have, fast-paced action. You have any minute doom and gloom. Okay, so that's what you've got to work with. So if you get really worked up and stressed out over that, don't watch it, all right? I'll be live when there's tornadoes. Now, I do not go live typically for just regular old variety Oklahoma thunderstorms, which include sometimes a little hail and wind, unless it's a very big peak event. In other words, like a widespread damaging wind event or just astronomically sized hail, something like that. I may go live for those, but spend most of my time to do this on the side on my free time, just to cover tornadoes. Otherwise, I'd be on almost, I don't know how many times a week I'd be on for hours at a time, and I just can't do that. I think Jody would kill me. So I try to limit my time on that deal. But TV guys, they have to cover everything. If a raindrop falls, it's going to be on TV. But you will hear, this storm's got rotation. This storm's got rotation. Listen, in Oklahoma in the spring, most storms will have some form of rotation. A lot of it will be mid-level. Mid-level means nothing. It's the low-level rotation. I mean the lowest level when it means something. Now, what does it mean? It means it's a healthy thunderstorm. It means it's probably going to produce some hail, and it'll eventually produce a little bit of damaging wind with it. Does it necessarily mean a tornado? Not in the closest thing. If you see a storm on the radar view, if they're zoomed in and they're going, we got a hook echo right here. We got a hook echo. We're going to have a tornado. Well, a lot of hook echoes are out there in some of these supercell storms, and very few of them produce tornadoes. It is very hard to get a tornado. So use those two pieces of advice. This is all historically accurate in all the storms we've ever had. And so it's all the research. So remember of those things when you watch and you hear those kind of stuff. Now, you should get your attention, obviously. And if that particular storm is heading toward your direction, you really should pay attention. You might want to start preparing or think about what you're going to do, depending on how far away it is. There will be tracks given for estimated time of arrival. A lot of times you will know an hour, before a storm gets. Sometimes you may only know 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That's why sometimes you want to use those apps to help you out. If you're not paying attention to the TV, or if you don't have a NOAA weather radio, you got to have multiple ways to get information in this day and age. The sirens, I talked on that earlier today at lunch. Don't depend on them. Sometimes they fail. They don't work all the time. They're made for outdoor. They're not made for indoor use. They're not made for everybody in their homes to hear them. And depending on how well built your home is, you may not hear anything outside. So don't depend on that to warn you or alert you or wake you up in the middle of the night. If it does, great. It's one more tool in your arsenal. Let's see. I think I about covered just about most of everything. Now, hopefully tonight we don't get any tornadoes. I'm not rooting for them, I'm not hoping for them, but possibility exists we could have them. So I'm going to give you an example of a hook echo. All right. While I've been talking, that storm that we tracked in the model data moving into southwest Oklahoma that would hold together and produce hail along the way, it has what we call a little bit of a hook echo type signature. It's this guy that kind of comes out like this. Now, what happens is it's more of an appendage that goes like this in this direction. All right. So once it does this is a better look at the hook echo. All right, for the storm itself like that. Right now, it kind of almost has a reverse hook. It's out in this vicinity. So this would be the developing stages of what's trying to become a hook echo. So what does that mean? Nothing at this point in time. So it looks like more of an inflow feeder band to me. So it's not even mature. Is it about to produce a tornado? Not in the slightest. Looking at some of the information I have. It's just inbound wind at this point in time for this storm. So it's a supercell storm. It's got some good hail with it. Looks like still about an inch in diameter on the algorithms. It likely does have some mid-level rotation with it. So let me do that. And let me see if I can show you the difference. Okay, so I am looking at about, where are we? 7,000 feet in the air. 7,000 feet in the air. I'm looking at the rotations we call mid-level rotation. This is blue is winds toward the radar. Red is winds away from the radar. So if I say, hey, this storm's got rotation, I got to be really specific and go, nope, it's got mid-level rotation. And this mid-level rotation just means it's a healthy storm, probably producing some hail. It does not have low-level rotation. It definitely doesn't have anything that's going to produce a tornado. That rotation really would have to get down the surface and really tighten up. And then take on a little bit different shape for me to get concerned. But it's a good, strong storm. The algorithm suggests it should hold its own. Now, we do have new algorithms that will try to predict how well that this storm may produce a tornado. And earlier on, the storm had about a 7% chance. That's pretty low. Now the algorithms are going up to 56% chance. Why did it go from 7 to 56? Because it's getting more organized, better looking, stronger, that mid-level circulation is increasing, so the algorithm will start to increase accordingly. And as it starts to take on its new shape, like I said, it's trying to get that more of a hook echo appearance, like this, so it's starting to close off a little bit better. That just indicates that things are changing within the storm. These storms are living, breathing organisms. It's almost like a life form. It's really, really neat when you examine it and look at it. But like the meteorologists at the National Weather Service, like myself, they just look at all the different radar products and they watch it very closely. And then once it reaches certain thresholds, it has a certain look to it, they'll pull the trigger of a tornado warning, especially if they don't have any spotters in the reporting area. They'll just go radar indicated. All right, so that is the storm out here approaching Hobart. So, and Babs. So obviously, you guys, out in these two towns, you can expect some hail as this storm moves through. Lugert, Lone Wolf, also going to have a little hail in your area. Right now, we talked about an inch to, oh, this just went up. The new algorithm just went to 2 inches. That's getting close to baseball-sized hail. So that is a big storm. So just in the last 6 minutes, the algorithms have tripped higher as the storm has intensified. And here is the path of hail from the west. So these are all hail reports, 1 3/4, 1 inch diameter, 1 3/4. So from quarter to golf ball size hail has been historically present within these storms. So 2 inch size hail is definitely not out of the question. All right. This track is also a 1 hour track, which means it's got a long ways to go in a short time to get there. So in other words, it's going to be out here by itself for a while. When it starts to tap into some better dew points, that's really when the tornado threat would start to go up. I'd be surprised if it produced a tornado with dew points in the low 50s. Let's see, it's a 51 degree dew point, so that would surprise me. So we'll see what happens. I'll watch this off and on here this evening. I do expect to cover these storms should they start to get in that fashion. Let's see, back out west from there. Remember we talked about the satellite trying to show some new development. So this is what it looks like out here on the radar. So it's just now going. So this stuff should continue to bubble up and then move into southwest Oklahoma as we approach midnight. And then we'll see what happens with it. I'm all in favor of a few of those models that just basically said this thing comes into a dud. This guy moves to the northeast here in the around, let's just say toward Kingfisher, really, or Washita County, Northwest Canadian, and then up to Kingfisher, and then that's it. I mean, there are some models that said that's the only show. That's fine with me. We'll see what happens, but the parameters are there tonight, so we'll have to just wait and see if anything new develops there in the Panhandle that's trying. Okay, that's it for me. I will go and do some live. I do expect to potentially be up tonight late, so if you see me, throw me some love. Otherwise, get some sleep, and just in case you have to hear the sirens or a warning go off in your weather radio, you know what to do. Okay, I gotta get out of here, but you guys have a great rest of your evening, and you know what? I was going to answer some questions, and I did already, but let me just, before I sign off, let me just do a couple more, and then that way I can go back to that storm real quick before I sign off. Jamie on YouTube, new subscriber. All right, you're welcome. Glad to help. Jim's still here. Jim's always here. Good to see you, Jim. Mean Okie got the storm shelter aired out today. Good deal. Dashing Tiger Lily wants to know, join late. What's the chance of a tornado in Bethany? Well, all I can tell you is that we're going to expect a window of 2 to 4 for the storms to move through, and some of those had a potential for some tornadoes. Let's see. Nikki, I see your comment. You can also make sure you have the bug out bag idea or your storm shelter idea is those little charging blocks, those little lithium ion battery chargers for your phone and everything, because kids might be on there just draining the devices dry watching TV, so that'll keep it charged up while you're watching. That's another idea. But thanks you guys on YouTube for your comments. I'm going to go to Periscope. If you guys had any questions, send them real quick. in the next 60 seconds. Just now loaded yours up. Go to my patrons, and same with you guys. I'll see what could you... Oh, Bryant, what could you see as a fly in the ointment to avoid the tornadoes? The dew point values are still a little low, but they're coming up, so I guess they could not quite make it. I don't know why they wouldn't, but that would be one thing. Honestly, I'm perplexed as to how the models didn't produce any storms at all in last night's data, or really at lunchtime today. They didn't really start to go gangbusters until the afternoon runs, and I'm like, you're late to your own party. Come on, models. So it's just a deal where you recognize the pattern, you recognize the indices, and then you say it should happen. And then that's the joy of predicting the future. You know, Miss Cleo can't get them right every time, but she'll still charge you $9.95 a minute to tell you what your future holds. Now, Miss Cleo's probably dead. I don't know. That was something I watched back on saw the infomercial TVs back in my day. So your mileage may vary. All right, let me go to the comments on the other page. Hold on, and give it a second to load. And I do want to thank you guys for watching tonight. So Kelly says, hail in Stillwater? Yeah, it could be. Andrea, what about Lawton? What about Lawton? It's going to be here within the next couple hours. Just take a look out to your south and west. Ardmore, Heather, yep, you're in the zone to watch for some storms tonight, late tonight. Heather says Edmund good. Well, I don't know what that means. You mean good for chance of storms? Yes. Jeanette says don't forget the Social Security cards. Yep. Star, you're welcome. I need some coffee. I might have to have a whole pot of coffee. Jody, you hear that? Lady said, get me some coffee. Stat. Leanne about El Reno and West Oklahoma City. Yep, you're in the zone. Suzanne, yeah, I did cover May 20th. That's a long time ago, though, so I don't remember much. I've slept since then. Yeah, the system should weaken with time in eastern Oklahoma overnight as far as the severity goes. I think I forgot to mention that. I did that earlier today, but I don't think I did that tonight. And then pick back up in Arkansas. So central Arkansas, southern Arkansas may get some rough stuff toward the late morning hours into afternoon. So they're in the zone for a potential tornado and damaging winds and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so Facebook only let me scroll up for 50 last 25 to 50 comments, somewhere in there. So if you had any questions for me directly prior to that, I didn't get to see them. It won't let me. You'll have to type them again. Okfusky, Kelsey, so I just talked about that. You'll get some storms. They just won't scattered, so it's not a guarantee because they could easily go one north and one south of you, but they should be much weaker, so they may not even be severe at that point in time. Jeanette just got the severe thunderstorm watch from the app. All right. Let's see if a new one was issued or expanded. So let me go take a look. Nope. Still the same, and the warnings still continue out south and west of us. All right, let me check one more time. Jules from England checking in. Oh my goodness, that's a long ways away. Well, welcome to Oklahoma and Oklahoma weather, Jules. Jordan plays Roblox. Thank you for the chat tip, my friend, on YouTube. What are the conditions for Georgia in regards to tornadoes? Ooh, that looks a little rough in southeastern and southern U.S. For Wednesday. We can go take a look at that. I didn't look at it because I was so focused on Oklahoma. But since you asked and you were generous, I'll go take a look. Let's see. Lake Texoma, Carroll. Yeah, there'll be some storms. Amanda says, explain the Barron app alerts. So you will get a push notification to your phone from my weather app. It's called AT's Weather to Go. It's on Apple, Google Play if you don't have it. And What you're really going to be concerned about the most is the twisting storm alert, which is basically the precursor to an official tornado warning from the National Weather Service. So if you get that, that means you just got a heads up that no one else got. And it gives you a 1 to 10 rating. If it's a 7 or higher, hit the deck. Don't even wait. Get everybody together. Just get there. All right. If it's 4, 5, and 6, it means you better watch it really closely. It may not produce a tornado, but it's close. Right. It's right on the border. If it's a low number, don't worry so much about it. Just be aware that there's a storm coming, and if it blows over you as a 1 or 2, hey, kudos. It may pick up in numbers as it gets north and east of you. So look at it that way. Okay, so let's go to. I'm going to pull up the map for severe weather for the other part of the country. So let me go do this. Alright, so there is a large area the Storm Prediction Center has put out as a moderate risk. And we talked about this last night, how they would change that and how they would change our risk to an enhanced. And they've done both. So they just wait for new data to come in, but I can tell you how they're going to trend just based off the way the data goes. But the tornado threat is quite high over a large area. We're talking northeastern Louisiana, stretching through Alabama, into not just kind of touches the Georgia border as far as the biggest bullseye, but it's over a large area there in the deep south. It does trail out pretty quickly. Let's take a look at some model data from that, and we'll see what the latest high res shows. Let's see if that data's come in. Nope. All right, let's do this guy. Okay, so let's see how this looks with time. All right, so we are, there's Birmingham, Alabama for your reference, Jackson, Mississippi over here. So there's already some storms ongoing just in general currently. And then those kind of just continue off and on, scattered across those states. And then as we head to 2, 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, looks like at 7 o'clock the big wave comes in from the northeastern parts of Louisiana. There are some trailing helicity indicators out here into western Mississippi, so there will be likely a couple of tornadoes within that. Let's see, we go through time. Otherwise, it's kind of just the models aren't too gung-ho on producing like a lot of tornado type signatures. It's just but it's a broken line of cells. So let me take a look at what the sounding looks like in this area, just to get a general idea. All right, so the hazard type looks like a tornado. The wind shear looks great. Supercell classic, but it's low at the 2 to 4 kilometers. So that's the weakness. That's the why they didn't trigger. There's the weakness in the wind field between 2 and 4 kilometers in the atmosphere. So what that will do is it'll, as a supercell tries to get its updraft going and sustained, with a weaker wind field, that'll sometimes collapse and then it has to reorganize. So it'll waste a lot of its energy reorganizing over and over, which will help to limit tornado production. You got to have it consistent and constant, and then you get the tornado to go. So that might be a limiting factor as to why the models weren't going nuts with the outcome there across this area. But let me keep going. So there's Peachtree getting some thunderstorms off and on. Let's see. During the evening and overnight period. Let me see your sounding. It's still the same. It's a nighttime sounding. It's not perfect for tornadoes, but you can't rule them out. You're kind of in that gray zone, gray area. The good news is that the threat isn't as high as it could be. It's kind of on the lower end for you guys, which is probably why they circle the best tornado probabilities west of you. But anyway, so that moves quickly off to the east. So that's a look down there in the southeast. Let me do Arkansas real quick, and because I know these storms got pretty intense going through Arkansas. So there's a nice little cluster at 6 a.m. that moves through. Gonna be some hail with that, and might have a potential tornado in there. Let me take a look what the sounding looks like for this little cluster down here. Yeah, sounding shows there still could be a potential tornado, and the hail, significant hail size is up around 2 inches or so in diameter. So some big hail in the early morning hours. An odd time to have it, but that's what's happening there in east central Arkansas between Little Rock and Memphis with that cluster. And then the late morning cluster moves through. A lot of heavy rain with that one. Let me see what the sounding looks like there. And sounding doesn't change any really. It's, yeah, I guess you could still get a tornado out of that. The wind shear is not perfect. It's not a slam dunk, but it's enough to where a couple of storms may get carried away. Arkansas is a big state, so you get 1 or 2 tornadoes wouldn't be out of the question. Let me look at high-res NAM and see if that's any different. We're looking at the HER model. High-res is no different, looks like. Let's see, there's Wednesday afternoon. Yeah, same kind of look, same outcome. And I'll drop back down here to Alabama, Mississippi. Yeah, same kind of idea. So, I will also tell you it's a good time to remind you that even though there may be some good indices for severe weather, and the Storm Prediction Center will paint a large area like a moderate risk or a high risk, does still, believe it or not, does not guarantee that that's the outcome that's going to happen. A lot of things can go wrong to limit widespread severe weather reports, and we call that a bust. You know, in the an hour side of the world, in the weather terms, when meteorologists talk to one another, we say, "Oh, it was a bust." So, for example, tonight, if nothing happens and we just have that one storm out there and it dies off, I'd go, "It was a bust," right? And then the ones that were saying, "Well, I never called for anything either." Anyway, so it wasn't a bust for me. I'm like, well, good for you. You know, so you have that little tit for tat between friends, but that's about it. All right, let me take another quick look down here in southwest Oklahoma. See how our little storm's doing. Let's see. Yeah, it's just going through a lot of reorganization. Probability of a tornado is at 40%. Still got some hail close to 2 inches in diameter. Still got a lot of pink on the map. Pink equals some big hail. Let me see the ZDR. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's some big hail there. KDP, yep. So there's probably 2-inch size hail within this. No problem. So those parameters I just looked at real quick tells me there's the hail size. So 2 inches is a good guesstimation with that. And let me see. What does that say? Yeah. Okay. Let's go back. Rotation still not an issue at the lowest level. Let me go upstairs. Nope. Yeah. Not impressed yet. Otherwise, the fact it's just a big hail core. Let's see. Checking in with the weather service here real quick. All right, so their discussion was same thing we talked about, how dew points will increase overnight. So this storm that would normally weaken in this environment this late is going to do the opposite. It will hold its own and maintain, and might get stronger at times, but it'll go through different cycles, mainly producing large hail until we get those dew points a little higher. And right now they're in the low 50s in that environment. Let's see, they will get into the mid 50s though once they get around Fort Cobb. So once this thing goes about another hour or so down the road, by then, mid-50s will be ingesting into it. If we get some upper 50s, that may change the game as well. So we'll see how things go. You know, when I talk about dew point values in the mid-50s versus, low 50s and low 60s, it is a huge, significant difference when it comes to storms. If you want some, mamma jamma, nasty storms, potential for tornadoes, you want dew points typically at least in the 60s. When it's less than that, much harder to get a tornado and usually just get up with hail. even in the strongest storms like we have out here southwest that are producing some really good hail right now. So if someone were to be jumping up and down saying we got to watch for this tornado to develop out of this at any moment, it's nowhere close. It's a total fabrication. It's just letting you know. It's just nowhere near that potential yet. It may never get there. It just depends. We'll have to wait and see the track, and it's going to be a long time. It's only 10:30. This is going to go for the next few hours, all the way up probably through western Canadian County, then up into Guthrie, and then eventually probably Stillwater, unless it moves to more of a right turn. If it takes a right turn, then that means the storm has produced a tornado or is very close to doing so. Because once that happens, the mesoscale's really taken hold of the storm. It's really strengthened the total vertical column. And so typically the storm makes a hard right turn. So instead of a northeastward fashion, it goes more easterly. And so that changes the long-term trajectory. But for right now, it's going on a northeastward track, as it should. And then we'll just see what happens with that. All right, so I gotta get out of here. I already signed off once before, 40 minutes ago, and here I am. I gotta save my breath here. 58 mile per hour wind gust at the Weatherford Mesonet just came in. How about that? That's impressive. So this little storm up here, and there it is, gust of 58. And you're going, well, it's underneath just some light rain. I know, right? So the other thing that can happen is when you get some of these storms that do decay, it's a lot of momentum that goes up, towards space. Well, it can't go into space, so it has to come back down to Earth. So a lot of times these updrafts collapse. Then you can get this big rush of air that's been held aloft and just comes down as a downdraft. And so you can sometimes get these pockets of wind. And there you go. There's one in Weatherford just over what looks to be a light shower at that point in time. In reality, it's just a little bit of heavy rain to the south of you. Okay, and then probably a little bit of hail mixed in southwest between you and Cordell, between Bessie and Corn. All right, so that's enough of that. I wasn't showing you the zoom in, but this is what I was looking at. So this was the little icon here that showed gust of 58, just over some light rain. So there you go. Okay, I gotta get out of here for now, and I hope not to see you, but I do plan on seeing some of you. Just stay up with me if you like, and we'll just see what happens. Okay, guys? Be safe tonight, and we'll talk again soon.